Captain Derek Walls gripped the control panel of the merchant ship Prairie Dawn as warning alarms screamed throughout the bridge. He had been running cargo between the outer colonies for 15 years, but he never thought pirates would dare attack ships in the busy Centauri shipping lanes. The massive cargo hauler, originally built for mining operations and later converted for passenger transport, shook violently as bright blue plasma bolts struck its hull. 3 ships coming in fast. His navigator Tom Bradley shouted over the noise. They are fast attack vessels, military-grade weapons. Derek's heart sank as he looked at the passenger manifest. Today wasn't just any cargo run. The Prairie Dawn was carrying 26 kindergarten children from New Austin Colony back to Earth for their first visit to humanity's homeworld. It was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime for these 5- and 6-year-old kids. In the main passenger compartment, the children pressed their small faces against the thick viewing windows, watching the colorful plasma fire streak past like deadly fireworks. Their teacher, Mrs. Lisa Patterson, moved quickly between the rows of seats, her voice calm but firm as she tried to keep the children seated and quiet. "Everyone stay in your seats," she called out, forcing a smile despite the fear in her chest. "This is just like the emergency drills we practice at school. Remember, we stay calm and listen to instructions." Little Bobby Henderson, barely 6 years old with freckles covering his cheeks, tugged on Mrs. Patterson's sleeve. "Are those the bad guys my daddy told me about? The ones who take people's stuff in space?" Before she could answer, the ship lurched sideways as a magnetic grappling hook attached to the hull. The lights flickered and went out for a moment before emergency power kicked in, casting everything in a red glow. The pirates worked with the smooth efficiency of people who had done this many times before. They cut through the outer airlock in less than 3 minutes, their cutting tools sending sparks flying down the corridor. Captain Derek had already sent out a distress signal, but he knew help was hours away at best. The boarding party consisted of 12 heavily armed aliens from different species, but their leader stood out immediately. Voss was a Takarian, one of the warrior races from the Outer Rim. A long scar ran from his left eye down to his jaw, and his 4 arms each carried a different weapon. His reptilian face split into a wide grin when his team reported what they had found in the passenger area. "Human children," Voss said, his voice rumbling with satisfaction as he walked into the passenger compartment. The kids shrank back in their seats, some beginning to cry softly. "Perfect little hostages. Humans will pay anything, give anything, to get their young ones back." Mrs. Patterson stepped protectively in front of her students, her teacher instincts overriding her fear. "Please, they're just children. They haven't done anything wrong." Voss laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the metal walls. "That's exactly why they are so valuable. Human. Your species has a weakness for your offspring that makes no sense to us. Other races write off their young as acceptable losses, but humans? Humans go crazy when their children are threatened." He turned to his crew, gesturing with one of his 4 arms. "Get this ship moving to our base. And send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have 26 human children, and we want 50 million credits for their safe return. Also tell them we want safe passage to the Outer Rim, no pursuit, no tracking." The pirate crew moved quickly to take control of the ship's systems. Captain Derek was forced to watch helplessly as they changed the Prairie Dawn's course toward the asteroid belt where the Crimson Nebula Gang had their hidden base. As the ship jumped to faster than light travel, Mrs. Patterson gathered her frightened students closer together. She whispered gentle words of comfort, telling them that help would come, that their families loved them, and that everything would be okay. But inside, she wondered if anyone could find them in the vast emptiness of space, and if these pirates really understood what they had just done by taking human children. The Prairie Dawn disappeared into the darkness between stars, carrying its precious cargo toward an uncertain fate. Admiral Patricia Hayes was reviewing supply reports in her private office aboard the massive battleship Yorktown when the priority communication alert started flashing red on her desk. As a commanding officer of the Third Fleet, she received hundreds of messages daily, but the urgent signal pattern made her blood run cold. This was a type of transmission that only came during the worst emergencies. She pressed the secure channel button and watched as a holographic display materialize above her desk. The scarred face of the Takarian pirate appeared, his 4 arms crossed as he delivered his demands with casual cruelty. His voice was rough and confident, like someone who had done this many times before and always gotten what he wanted. "I am Captain Voss of the Crimson Nebula. We have your merchant vessel Prairie Dawn and its cargo of 26 human children. Our terms are simple and non-negotiable. Transfer 50 million credits to the account coordinates I'm transmitting. Guarantee safe passage for our ships to leave human space, and the children will be returned unharmed to a location of our choosing." The pirate leaned closer to the camera, his reptilian eyes gleaming with what he thought was cleverness. "Refuse our terms, attempt any rescue operation, or try to track us, and these children will be sold to the slave markets in the Outer Rim territories. You humans are so predictably emotional about your young. I'm sure you'll make the right choice." Admiral Hayes sat perfectly still for several seconds after the transmission ended, her face showing no emotion. Her aide, Lieutenant Commander Rick Thompson, stood nearby waiting for orders, but she seemed lost in thought. Then, without any warning or discussion, she reached across her desk and activated the most powerful emergency beacon in human space. The code amber signal went out simultaneously to every human military base, colony, space station, corporate headquarters, and even criminal organization within 1,000 light years. It was a signal that had only been used 3 times in human history, and never for a situation quite like this. On 8th, in a dimly lit restaurant in what used to be called Little Italy, crime boss Vincent Romano was in the middle of a tense negotiation with leaders from 3 rival families. They were discussing territory disputes and profit sharing from their various illegal operations when every phone in the room started buzzing with the same emergency message. Romano read the text message once, then looked up at his supposed enemies around the table. Without saying a word, he stood up and walked toward the door. "Meeting's over," he said simply. "We've got more important things to deal with now." The other crime bosses nodded in agreement. Their petty disputes seemed meaningless compared to what they had just learned. On Mars, Colonel James Mitchell was overseeing large-scale military training exercises involving 3 full divisions of colonial marines. Thousands of soldiers were engaged in complex battle simulations across the Red Planet's rocky terrain when the code amber alert reached every communication device simultaneously. Mitchell immediately called a halt to all operations. His senior officers gathered around him as he read the message aloud over the command network. The training ground fell silent as 10,000 hardened soldiers processed what they had just heard. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked Major Lisa Chen, his second-in-command. "Cancel all leaves, recall every unit to full readiness, and prepare for immediate deployment," Mitchell replied. 26 kids are out there, and they are coming home." The message spread across human civilization like wildfire. In the gleaming corporate towers of New Tokyo, business executives interrupted board meetings to redirect company security forces. On remote mining stations scattered throughout the galaxy, rough miners put down their tools and started checking their personal weapons. Dr. Helen Parker, a scientist on a research station near Jupiter, stopped her important experiments on alien technology to volunteer her ship for the search effort. "Science can wait," she told a confused research team. "Children can't." Even in the deepest part of space, on barely legal salvage operations and smuggling runs, humans received the message and changed course. Ship captains who normally avoided any contact with authorities suddenly started broadcasting their positions and offering assistance. What the pirate Voss didn't understand was that he had just triggered something deeper than law, government, or military command. He had awakened something primal in the human species, something that transcended all their usual divisions and conflicts. Every human in the galaxy, from the most law-abiding citizen to the most hardened criminal, now had one single shared purpose. The children were what mattered now. Everything else could wait. Captain Voss stood in the command center of his hidden asteroid base, watching the sensor displays with growing confusion and alarm. What had started as normal space traffic patterns around the outer shipping lanes was rapidly becoming something he had never seen before in his 30 years of piracy. The base was carved deep into a large asteroid in an unnamed system, far from any major trade routes. It was the perfect hiding spot, surrounded by debris fields and electromagnetic interference that made detection nearly impossible. Voss had been using this location for raids for over 5 years, and no military force had ever found it. But now, dozens of ships were appearing on his long-range sensors. Then hundreds. They came from every direction, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in small groups and immediately forming into larger formations. What worried him most was that they weren't following any normal military patterns or procedures. His communications officer, Crix, was a thin, nervous member of the Zillan species with large eyes that seemed to take up half his face. His six-fingered hands moved rapidly across his control panel as more and more signals appeared on his screens. Sweat beaded on his blue-tinted skin despite the cool temperature of the command center. "Captain," Crick said, his voice shaking slightly, "I'm detecting massive fleet movements throughout this entire sector. The numbers keep growing. We now have over 300 vessels within scanner range, and more arriving every few minutes." Voss moved closer to look at the tactical display himself. His scarred face twisted into a frown as he studied the formations. These weren't the organized battle groups he was used to seeing from human military forces. Instead, it looked like ships from dozens of different organizations had simply shown up and started working together. "Show me the ship classifications," he ordered. Crix's fingers danced over his controls, bringing up detailed information about each vessel. "Sir, we're seeing everything out there. Heavy battleships from the Earth Defense Force, colonial militia vessel, corporate security fleets, private military contractors, and—" He paused, checking his readings twice. "Captain, we're also detecting ships that belong to known criminal organizations. Criminal ships working alongside military vessels." Voss laughed harshly. "That's impossible. Humans spend half their time fighting each other. Their criminals and military are sworn enemies." But even as he said it, the evidence was right there on his screens. A massive dreadnought from Earth's First Fleet was flying in formation with a group of ships that is computer identified as belonging to the Romano crime family. Corporate security vessels from 3 different companies that normally competed aggressively were coordinating their movements perfectly. Lieutenant Torx, Voss's second-in-command and fellow Takarian, approached with a data pad in his hands. "Say, our intelligence network is reporting the same phenomenon across human space. Every military base, every corporate fleet, even pirate hunters and bounty hunters, are all moving toward this sector." "That's not how humans operate," Voss insisted, his forearms gesturing angrily at the displays. "They are too divided, too competitive. They fight over resources, territory, political differences. I've made a career out of exploiting their disunity." Crix looked up from his communication station, his large eyes even wider than usual. "Captain, we're receiving over 400 transmission requests now. Every single one is from a human ship, and they all want to talk to you directly." The pirate captain stared at the massive formation of ships surrounding his previously secret base. Massive battleships capable of destroying planets hung in space next to small civilian vessels that had obviously been hastily armed. Military formations that should have taken weeks to organize had appeared in less than 24 hours. "So," Torx said quietly, "perhaps we should consider their ransom demands. This is far more response than we anticipated for 26 children." But Voss shook his head, still refusing to believe what he was seeing. In his experience, humans were predictable. They valued profit, they fought among themselves, and they could be intimidated by superior firepower. He had successfully ransomed human prisoners before, always dealing with small groups or individual families who paid quickly to avoid trouble. What he was looking at now defied everything he thought he knew about human nature. It was as if every human in the galaxy had suddenly forgotten their differences and united around a single goal. The display showed vessels from Earth, Mars, the outer colonies, mining stations, research facilities, and even deep space exploration ships, all working together with an efficiency that seemed impossible. "Keep monitoring their movements," he ordered, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. "And prepare our defenses. If they want to negotiate, they can do it from a safe distance." But deep down, Voss was beginning to realize that he might have made the biggest mistake of his criminal career. The holographic projector in Voss's command center suddenly activated without any input from his crew. A shimmering blue light filled the center of the room as a 3-dimensional image of a human woman materialized before them. Ambassador Elena Vasquez appeared to be in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a simple style, and wearing the dark blue uniform of the human diplomatic corps. What made Voss's blood freeze wasn't her appearance, but her expression. Her face showed no anger, no fear, no emotion at all. Her dark eyes looked at him with the cold calculation of someone who had already decided his fate. She stood perfectly still, her hands clasped behind her back in a military posture that suggested years of training. Behind the ambassador, Voss could see other figures in the hologram. To her right stood General Robert Kane, the legendary commander of Earth's military forces, his chest covered with medals from dozens of campaigns. To her left was David Chen, the CEO of Stellar Industries, one of the largest corporations in human space. But what truly shocked the pirate captain was seeing Tony Romano, the notorious crime boss whose organization controlled illegal activities across 3 star systems, standing shoulder to shoulder with these legitimate leaders. Romano's scarred face and expensive suit made him instantly recognizable to anyone in Voss's line of work. "Captain Voss," Ambassador Vasquez said, her voice carrying easily across the command center despite speaking at normal volume. "I am here representing the unified response of humanity to your actions." The pirate tried to maintain his confident demeanor, spreading his 4 arms wide in a gesture he hoped looked dismissive. "Ambassador, how nice of you to visit my humble base. I trust you received my ransom demands. 50 million credits seems quite reasonable for 26 healthy human children." Elena's expression didn't change at all. "Release the children immediately." Voss laughed, the harsh sound echoing off the metal walls of his command center. His crew shifted nervously behind him, but he pressed on with his usual intimidation tactics. "You're in no position to make demands, human. I have what you want, and you have what I want. This is simple business. And if I refuse your generous offer..." Voss continued, his confidence growing as he spoke. "What then? You'll start a war over 26 children? You'll risk the lives of thousands of your people, spend millions of credits, all for a handful of youngsters you don't even know." The ambassador's cold stare never wavered. When she spoke again, her words carried the weight of absolute certainty. "Captain Voss, you fundamentally misunderstand the situation. The war began the moment you took those children. We are not here to start anything. We are here to end it." For the first time since the conversation began, Voss felt a chill of genuine fear creep up his spine. Something in the human's tone suggested this wasn't a negotiation at all. This was something else entirely. General Kane stepped forward slightly, his weathered face showing decades of combat experience. "Captain, in my 40 years of military service, I've seen humans fight over resources, territory, political differences, and countless other causes. But I've never seen anything like what's happening right now." David Chen nodded in agreement. "Every corporation in human space has suspended normal operations. We've redirected security fleets, transport vessels, even mining ships to this location. The economic cost is already in the billions, and no one cares." Tony Romano, his voice carrying the rough accent of Earth's old crime families, added his own perspective. "In my business, we understand leverage, threats, and negotiation. But you picked the wrong target. Alien. You don't threaten human children and expect to walk away." Ambassador Vasquez raised a hand slightly, and all 3 men stepped back. "Captain Voss, what you're seeing around your base isn't a military response or a rescue operation. It's something much more fundamental. You've triggered every protective instinct that our species possesses." She gestured to the men standing behind her. "Military leaders, corporate executives, and criminal organizations have put aside generations of conflict to focus on one single objective. We're not here to negotiate, bargain, or make deals. We're here to retrieve those children and ensure that no one ever makes this mistake again." Voss looked around his command center at his own crew. Crix was staring at his communication panels in obvious terror. Lieutenant Torx had gone completely silent, his usual aggressive posture replaced by nervous tension. Even his most experienced pirates were beginning to understand that this situation was unlike anything they had ever faced. "You're making a terrible mistake." Voss tried one last time to regain control. "I have hostages. I have weapons. I have a fortress that has never been breached." Elena smiled for the first time, but it was a cold expression that held no warmth at all. "Captain, you have 26 reasons why none of that matters anymore." The attack on the Crimson Nebula base began at exactly 1432 Galactic Standard Time, and by 1446, it was completely over. 14 minutes was all it took for the most heavily defended pirate fortress in the outer territories to become nothing more than floating debris in space. What made the assault so devastating wasn't superior technology or clever tactics. The human fleet wasn't even using their most advanced weapons. What destroyed Voss's supposedly impregnable base was something much simpler and far more terrifying: absolute coordination between forces that had never worked together before in galactic history. When Ambassador Vasquez gave the final order to commence the rescue operation, over 800 ships opened fire simultaneously. Military dreadnoughts unleashed their main batteries alongside converted cargo haulers firing improvised weapons. Corporate security vessels coordinated their attacks with criminal organization ships whose captains they would normally be trying to arrest. The base's defensive shields, designed to withstand attacks from small raiding parties or single military vessels, simply couldn't handle the overwhelming firepower of an entire civilization focused on one target. The energy barriers collapsed within seconds, and the asteroid fortress that had taken Voss years to build was reduced to rubble in less than 15 minutes. Inside the base's detention area, Mrs. Lisa Patterson held her kindergarten students in the corner of their prison cell as the walls shook from the bombardment outside. The children huddled together, some crying softly, others asking questions she didn't know how to answer. "Are the good guys here?" asked little Bobby Henderson, his freckled face pressed against her shoulder. "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered, though she could barely believe the sounds of destruction echoing through the corridors. "The good guys are here." When the main blast doors finally opened, Mrs. Patterson expected to see a small rescue team of elite soldiers. Instead, she watched in amazement as dozens of people in different uniforms poured into the detention area. There were Marines from the Earth Defense Force, security officers from major corporations, and even some rough-looking individuals who were clearly not part of any official organization. The rescue coordinator, a gruff sergeant named Bill Murphy, knelt down to the children's eye level as his teams began checking them for injuries. "Hey there, kids. I know this has been scary, but you're safe now. We're going to get you home to your families." "How many people came to save us?" asked Jenny Walsh, a tiny girl with pigtails who couldn't have been older than 5. Sergeant Murphy looked through the blasted doorway at the controlled chaos of the rescue operation, where hundreds of volunteers from across human space were working together to secure the area and prepare the children for transport. "About 1,000 ships, little one. Maybe more." The children stared at him in wonder, unable to comprehend numbers at large. Mrs. Patterson felt tears streaming down her face as she realized the magnitude of what had happened. An entire civilization had mobilized to save her students. As they were loaded onto comfortable rescue shuttles, young Tommy Bradley tugged on Mrs. Patterson's sleeve. His wide blue eyes looked up at her with the innocent curiosity that only children possess. "Mrs. Patterson, why did so many people come for us? We're just kids from a small colony. We're not important like presidents or generals." She knelt down and hugged him gently, thinking about the incredible sight of nearly 1,000 ships surrounding the pirate base. Military vessels, corporate fleets, private citizens, even reformed criminals, all united by a single purpose that transcended every normal division in human society. "Tommy," she said softly, "you are the most important thing in the galaxy. All of you are, because that's what humans do. We protect our children. All of them. Always." Meanwhile, in a detention cell aboard the massive battleship Yorktown Asterisk, Captain Voss sat alone, finally beginning to understand the magnitude of his mistake. Through his cell's small window, he could see the debris field that had once been his impregnable fortress. Guards had told him that not a single human child had been harmed in the rescue operation. For 30 years, Voss had built a career on understanding the weaknesses of other species. He knew that the Carians valued honor above profit, that Zillans could be intimidated by shows of force, and that most civilizations would eventually negotiate when presented with difficult choices. But humans were different. He had assumed their love for their children was just another weakness to exploit, like any other emotional attachment. What he discovered instead was that this love was their greatest strength. Any species willing to mobilize entire civilizations to protect their young wasn't just dangerous in battle, they were completely unstoppable as a culture. The rescue of the Prairie Dawn Asterisk children became legendary throughout the galaxy. Within months, the story had spread to every corner of known space, carried by traders, diplomats, and travelers of dozens of different species. The message was simple and clear. Human children were now the most protected beings in the galaxy, not because of any law or treaty, but because everyone understood what would happen to anyone foolish enough to threaten them. Pirates began avoiding any ship that might carry human families. Slave traders removed humans from their target lists entirely. Some alien species found this response puzzling or even excessive, but the wiser civilizations recognized it as a key to understanding why humans had spread across the stars so successfully. A species that would unite their entire civilization to protect their young possessed something that couldn't be defeated by superior technology or greater numbers. An absolutely uncompromising love that made them willing to sacrifice everything for the next generation.